Hello chums, and welcome to Setups for Simpletons. I've created an entire series dedicated to explaining Gran Turismo 7's quirky and sometimes unforgiving tuning system, but sometimes it's nice to just copy someone else's homework and be done with it. So in this series I will take one car at a time, show a complete setup, and a lap of the Nürburgring for good measure. Disclaimer, if you use my setups it does not mean you're a simpleton. Let's begin! A number of semi-interesting new engine swaps were added recently, and I've covered most of them, but the last of them for me is this. The Volkswagen Golf Mk7 can finally have its droning soulless 4-cylinder turbo replaced with a V6 engine from the Vision Gran Turismo Group 3 car. Only downside is the idea of this front-wheel drive Golf handling 800 horsepower. We shall see. For the visuals, the Audi A3 has the wide body fitted as usual, along with aftermarket wheels in the standard size. Decreasing the size can make the car more stable over bumps or curbs, and increasing the size can make the car feel slightly more agile. The Seat Leon has a front splitter for front downforce and a rear wing to keep it stable. The style is a very imaginative Falcon livery with some slightly modernised touches which you can find by searching for Super Turismo as usual. This setup is mostly the same as I would do for most other front-wheel drive cars. I found that a very small amount of ballast weight added to the front axle improved the Skoda Octavio's traction just enough to improve the lap time slightly. The Volkswagen Tiguan has been crying out for an engine swap since day one. The droning 2-litre turbo it starts off with is fairly well known even in the real world for sounding flat and lifeless no matter what you do with it, and in Gran Turismo it's even worse. While the V6 out of the Vision Gran Turismo isn't necessarily the best sounding engine in the game, it certainly adds something to make the Audi Q2 slightly more interesting again. As with most other front-wheel drives, the Skoda Karoq suffers with wheel spin once the new engine has been upgraded, so it pays to be gentle with accelerator inputs on corner exits. Otherwise, the front tyres will implode and you'll understeer into a tree. You may remember that this engine is available in one other car, the Renault Aventime. You may be able to tell from the footage that the Seat Ateca doesn't handle this engine anywhere near as well as the big French baguette does. The Aventime has a rear diffuser for more downforce, and its extra weight actually works in its favour, adding traction, while the brakes are roughly on the same level as this Volkswagen T-Roc. So if you're torn on which to go for, I'd suggest you fit this engine to the big weird toaster from France. If you really must have this car swapped, I would recommend using the power restrictor to limit power down to about 550 horsepower. That way the engine makes more power closer to the red line so that you can rev higher and enjoy the noise, plus it handles 550 horsepower much more handily than it does 800 horsepower. In the end, the Skoda Kamiq managed a 6 minutes 34, which is almost 10 seconds behind the Aventine with the same engine. In fact, it's only a few seconds faster than the Mark I Golf with the Quattro engine. So, that was my setup for the engine swap Volkswagen Golf Polo Passat Tiguan Touran. I hope it helped. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like, subscribe and kick me in the bell so that you get notified of my future uploads. Take care of yourself, and ta-ra.